Hey, 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 hey. Good afternoon, Fargo. Welcome to Talk of the Town with Jon Adams. Uh, I'm a little sad because, as you guys know, I like to golf, and it is championship week. You know, seniors, net. The Maple River Championship is on Sunday, so as is my custom, I'm gearing up. I practiced yesterday. Well, I've been practicing every day because, for some reason, I think, you know what, this is going to be. I'm a true Viking fan. You see, I'm wearing Viking colors. I'm a true Viking fan in the sense that every year is going to be my year out at the golf course. Even if I don't have a shot, I feel like this could be the year because I just need to have a few things fall in place and I should be good. But you know, it's not easy out there. You know, you got guys like Jimmy Johnson on the scene who just kills it. You know, we've got what's his name? Dan Perrine is now a senior, although you know, Jimmy Johnson and Dan Perrine, I don't know if they're going to play on the if they're going to play in the senior division. They're still good enough to win the Open Championship, you know, as it would as it pertains to Maple River. So, you know, I think I'm old enough where I can play with the seniors and feel okay about that. You know, the senior age limit is 35, right? So that means at 35. James, I got to wake up today. To play on the seniors, you have to be 55 years old. And as you guys know, I'm 60 now. So I'm like, all right, I'm ready to rock and roll on this thing. And for 5 years, I've been chasing a dream. I think last year, Lynn won it. He shot at 81 or something. And I was coming in. That would have been my year to take it. But either way, ladies and gentlemen, root for me, cheer for me. Wish me the best. I'm going to go out and try to win. I'm going to play in the senior division. I don't think I'm good enough. Well, I know I'm not good enough to play in the Open, the Open Championship. Holy cow, there's too many good sticks. Defending champion Travis Weber, that guy's just shutting people down. And so, you know, congratulations to him and his daughter Emma for winning they won the father-child event over Father's Day. So Jackson and I, we shot a salty one over, which got us absolutely nothing, but we still had fun. So, guys, it's been a heck of a week, hasn't it? It's been a week of ups and downs and turmoil, but before I get started, I do want to say I want to thank the city of Fargo, Fred Edwards Jr., and everyone who came out to support the Juneteenth celebration. It was an absolute blast, both at Concordia and on the plaza down at U.S. Bank. The U.S. Bank Plaza downtown. Myself and Jonathan Judd and Melvin Whitney, we only said we were going to go down for an hour because it was sweltering, but we ended up being down there for about 3-4 hours because it was such a happening. It was so refreshing to see even more faces of Europeans downtown celebrating Juneteenth. You know, it was interesting at the Concordia Juneteenth celebration. I got to meet Mayor Shelley of the city, the mayor of the city of Moorhead. Very interesting young lady. Hopefully, I'm going to have her on because there are a lot of great things happening in the city of Moorhead. The economic development is unreal. I'm sure there's going to be some people that'll disagree with great things happening, but it's really fun to, you know, I haven't been over there. I go over the Moorhead to look at watch the Bison play football. She whiz. Watch the Dragons play football. That's about it. I'm going to catch a basketball game here and there. But for the most part, I don't really get to Moorhead much. I used to play the Meadows. I play Village Green sometime, but for the most part, I don't drive around the city of Moorhead. And so to drive around, I mean, you know, North Part, Main Avenue, and South, everything has changed in Moorhead, especially from when I was there. But there's a lot of economic development going on. So I hope to have Mayor Shelley on in the future to talk about what's happening in Moorhead. Just to put a bow on the Juneteenth celebration, I'm still amazed at the number of people that either have no idea what it means. One lady even said, you know, I thought Juneteenth was all about reparations. And I just had to laugh because it's like, you know, we really do only care about what's important to us. And nowhere was that more evident than the whole Juneteenth hubbub. But the beautiful thing is now we get to put it in the rearview mirror. I almost feel like when our holidays come around, people are like, oh, let's just get through the holiday. And almost like Thanksgiving, you get tired because you know you're going to see people you really don't want to hang out with, or, it just all the holiday blues things. And I feel like that's what's happening with Juneteenth, where people are like, yeah, enough about Juneteenth. Yes, we know it's celebrated the end of slavery and blah, blah, blah. But, it's important that we acknowledge what other people value. You look on the world stage, it seems like we only value our own opinion in this, as it pertains to us. Okay? And the rest of the world better dang well fit the narrative that we want to have as the United States. And boy, I got to tell you, the way it's playing out over the past 6 months, holy smokes. At the end of 4 years, are we going to have any allies in this thing? Because we're dumping on the whole world right now. Okay? And so the question becomes, what is going to happen when all of the, in 6 months, look at all of the things that have happened just in the past 6 months. And I got to ask you, are you a little worried yet? Okay? What is going to be the one thing that makes us say, hey, let's slow the brakes on a lot of things that are going on? Because right now, there's so much double talk coming out of every politician's mouth that makes me sick to my stomach. Left, right, and in the middle. I'm tired of, it's exhausting that nobody can answer a question. Nobody can just tell you exactly what they think. There always has to be a spin to it. There always has to be something on the other side of it. Just answer the question. Just tell people the truth. And the funny thing is, I hate being treated like I couldn't possibly know what I'm looking at in front of me. Okay? And this is all leading up to something. I want people to call in, and I want you to tell me what your honest assessment was when you found out that we had bombed 3 areas of Iran. I hate this show in the fact that I only get to talk one day a week, and it's on Wednesday. So everybody else, when this stuff happens, everybody else gets to jump on me, so everybody's had their opinion. So by Wednesday, I don't know if people are tired of talking about it, but this is fresh to me. Now, I got to tell you, I didn't know that we had bombed Iran till like 24 hours later. Okay? And even then, I think it was Juneteenth. It might have been. Either way, I was doing something where I didn't have social media. Oh, I forgot to charge my phone, and that's what happened. But anyway, by the time I found out that it was, I'm sorry, it's about 12 hours. 24 hours, really. Anyway, but I'm telling you, for the first time in a long time, I was genuinely fearful of what the repercussions could be of our bombing of Iran. Okay? Now, we haven't had a major terrorist attack on our soil since 9/11. But for the first time, I started thinking, what is going to happen as a result of these bombings? Okay? And we would be foolish to think that the Iranians are sitting on their hands and there isn't something that's going to happen. And so for me, I'm like, hey, okay, what does this mean? Does this mean I shouldn't go to, I shouldn't go to the Super Bowl if the Vikings are in it? That's how much I believe that the Vikings are going to win. James, is I'm planning my Super Bowl tickets. and wouldn't it be something that the one year that the Vikings get to the Super Bowl, it gets called off because we're scared of terrorism or something like that?
It might work in their favor if they make it to the Super Bowl and we didn't have fans in the stands.
Nah, man. I'm sneaking in. I don't care what happens. I'm going to that game if the Vikings get there. But
I think you might be a little delirious today, but I'm hopeful. I'm still hopeful.
I'm not delirious, man. I got purple fever, baby.
I've had it my whole life, and don't worry. Once August comes, I'll be in the same boat.
Look, man. With everything they've done, I just feel like this could be our year. Anyway, it's right along my golf conversation. But anyway, I really want people I want to know, what did you think? Now, for me, I can tell you when I heard it, my heart sank. Immediately, I had this trepidation about where we are in the world. Now, from a biblical perspective, this is definitely the end times. Okay? Um, I'm not going to dive too deep into it, but I can tell you that biblically, this is exactly the way it's supposed to play out. Okay? And I mean, that sits in the back of my mind too. Now, I'm hoping that, I'm not even going to say cooler heads prevail, but I hope that we wake up in America as Americans and say enough is enough. Now, here's the kicker. So I want to hear what what your thoughts are on us bombing Iran, okay? And please, everybody, I need you to understand. Trump has immunity because he's acting in a presidential manner, okay? Remember when the Supreme Court said, hey, we're going to give him immunity when he acts as a president. So he didn't start a war, okay? He basically tactilely took out nuclear positions, okay? He can do that as the president. That's what that whole Supreme Court thing was about. So there isn't going to be an impeachment. You know, it's another way. By the way, do you guys realize that when a guy gets impeached, he still gets to be in office? Okay? So stop with the let's impeach him. Let's not go down that road and waste everybody's time and money, you know, or detract from something else, because it doesn't matter if the guy gets impeached. He's still going to be in office. He's still going to allow to do the things that he's doing. So stop. I don't want to hear it. You guys are killing me with that, okay? But at the same time, let's not stick our head in the sand and pretend like we're not. Well, I'm worried. You know, I got a grandson on the way, for gosh sakes, okay? I can't have that little guy entering the world with all this turmoil. I need somebody in Washington to get it together and knock it off, because, you know, when the little guy gets there, I got a lot to teach him before I kick off. So, you know, that's the first thing, is I want to hear what you guys have to say about that. Then the second thing is, I decided I was going to watch Fox News and CNN for 1 hour. Now, this has never happened, but I just wanted to do it just to get a flavor for what each network is like. And I'm going to tell you the truth. Majority of the time, I don't know if I'm supposed to be rooting for Fox or I'm supposed to be rooting for CNN. And sometimes I get them mixed up, and my wife gets mad at when I say, you know, Fox News had some good stuff on. What? Why are you watching Fox News? Or, you know, CNN, boo, whatever it is, I decided to watch. And I have to tell you, it is gripping, spectacular drama on both of those shows. And they're purely entertainment. This is not about news anymore. This is about opinion. It's no different than what I'm doing right now. It's just freestyling out here, giving my opinion on stuff, hoping that people tune in. But I got left on Fox the day that I watched. The hour that I watched, they talked about liberating our cities from the takeover of immigrants that Joe Biden led into the country. And I thought to myself, damn, immigrants are taking over our countries and our cities? And the commentators were on and they were talking, and just listening to somebody say, we need to liberate our cities. And I thought, you know, when we talk about liberating, generally that's a term that's reserved for war. You know, that's something, you know, I mean, think about all the world wars and this and that. When people talk about, well, we need to go in and we need to liberate the people of where? Germany, Italy. You know, we've got to beat back the Japanese in World War II. We've got to liberate them. And I suppose not necessarily in the Pacific, but in Europe. But now we're using these type of terms to describe sending troops to protect ICE agents who are doing their job, which is a whole nother topic, which I'm not even going to touch. Okay, I'm 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 exhausted from that too. It seems to me that I'm exhausted a lot when I start thinking about what's happening, you know, um, on the world stage, on the national stage. The only thing I'm not exhausted about is locally, other than the other than the construction. But I want you guys to call in. I want us to have this discussion because I think it's important that we're we're hearing these things, but we're not doing everything we can to hold people accountable. And you guys had to know that I was going to get the accountability piece sooner or later. But on the CNN side, it was it was just attack, attack, attack. Use logic and reason, and when that doesn't work, you know, just go off the rails. And the funny thing is on the CNN side, it was the same thing that I saw last year when the Fox News was talking about Biden. Is the CNN people were very smug. They were almost it was can I discuss? I mean, almost an arrogance to the way they were pounding on the mistakes that this administration has made. And there have been some mistakes. Let's not pretend like everything has been everything. You know, like I said, this is the break it fix it administration as far as I'm concerned. You know, if we really want to talk about Iran, let's talk about the fact that in his first term he ripped up the nuclear deal that Obama had in place, which I still can't figure out why he did it. But then now, 6 years later, he's got the answer on how to fix it, and that's let's just nuke them. But much like Iraq, when we had to go in because we knew they had weapons of mass destruction, now we're now we're bombing another country because um, they're enriching uranium so that they can do X, X, and X. And the interesting thing, there's a little thing that happened, I would say 3, 4 weeks ago, is that someone in the Trump administration said there's no indication that they were preparing enriched uranium or it refuted the reason why we actually were doing what we did. Um, I forget her name, but um, Trump just said, "Yeah, she's wrong." Uh-oh, that's the playing music. It sounds like we got to go to break, but I'll tell you what, when we come back, we're going to talk more about what's going on in the world. In addition to, what are some things that you wish that would get right in a hurry, whether it's gas prices, whether it's food, you know, I'm going to table the immigration, but when I come back, we're going to talk more. This is Jon Adams on a rainy Wednesday afternoon for Talk of the Town with Jon Adams. Hey, welcome back to Talk of the Town with Jon Adams. I'm sitting in studio with myself. I was going to have Zach Johnson on. He's a former Bison football player, former pro athlete, football player, to talk some Bison football. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it, but he's going to be in on a later show. But so I want to continue on. But before I get started, something interesting happened yesterday. Gerald and I are sitting at home. By the way, she had book club, so I'm sitting there and waiting for the book club to start, and I wasn't part of it. I was leaving. But anyway, so there's a knock at the door, and, and Gerald's like, I think they're here, and they couldn't have been here. It was too early, right? So I knock on the door, and here is a young lady and her two kids standing there at the door, and I'm like, well, okay. I've never seen her before, but I was thinking, oh, man, Jehovah's Witnesses are bringing their kids going door knocking now? That's new. But it wasn't Jehovah's Witnesses. It was a young lady. Her name was Rosalind Huber. And she, along with St. Paul's Free Lutheran Church, they're going to have a pop-up vacation Bible school June 29th from 5 to 7 at Woodbury Park. That's west of Fargo Baptist Church. But I thought it was awesome. Number one, where we live, there's a lot of houses, and then there are apartments and stuff like that. But I thought, I don't know if you guys know, but about Vacation Bible School, but I can remember going up the street. There's a church on the corner where we used to live, and we would go to Vacation Bible School. And I always remember having sugar cookies and orange drink or high C or something like that. And you'd learn a few Bible verses. The minister or whoever was there would tell a couple stories, and then you would sing songs like, "The Lord is good to me." That's as far as I'm going to go. You know the deal. But anyway, it kind of warmed my heart to know that there are still people out there that are doing things that give kids a spiritual grounding. And I told her, I said, I don't think I thought, you know what, maybe I should go to Vacation Bible School. But Geraldine vetoed that and said, it's for kids, honey. I wanted to go. I thought it would have been fun to sit around and sing with the little guys. But I got vetoed by Geraldine, and probably rightfully so. But isn't it great that there are still people out there doing this? And it just reaffirmed my faith in who we are as a nation. We're still a nation of Christians, and we have other religions. We're not going to go deep into that, forcing our religion on other people. That's not what this is about. It's about, basically giving our kids a spiritual base. And so think about all the things that I said at the beginning of the show, all the stuff I talked about in the first segment about where we are as a nation and where we are as the world. And then to have this young lady with her two young children there saying, hey, we're having a Vacation Bible School. If you have any kids in the household, they're welcome to come. It really touched me in a way that it was like, wow, this is God at work. Just when, like I said, I really have some trepidation as to how all this bombing in the Iran and Israel and all this plays out. There's really some trepidation in my heart about where we're going. And I can't help but believe that we've just made a lot of new enemies. And not necessarily a lot of new enemies, but I think when you do stuff like this and you become the big stick of the world, that you can set your nation up to become the enemy of people that we don't need to be enemies of. Now, there's all this rhetoric out there that, the Muslim faith is about this, and this. But if you've ever sat with someone who's actually of the Muslim faith, you would realize that it's totally opposite. But just like in our country where we have the left and the right who are the extremes and get 90% of the airtime, which they shouldn't have, because most of us don't live on the edges like that. A large majority, a large number of people do live on the edges, but most of us, we live near the center, which makes sense as a human being to be. But I don't know why people gravitate to the outskirts or to the edges of left or right. And I have an opinion, which I think that people are looking for a sense of longing and belonging. And you know, if you can put a hat on, you can identify with someone who more represents what you really think. And so that's basically where we're at right now. And so, if you guys have opinion, what's going to move us closer to what I think our core values are, which is more central, not so much left or right. You know, what is going to be the thing that makes us wake up and say, you know what, I'm tired of listening to the extreme right talk about how liberals are the enemy and they are the reason that we have social decay in our country right now. Okay, I'm sick of hearing the left's, you know, their damning conviction of the right in such a fashion that it stirs people to be idiots at times. Either way, something has to move us back to the middle or closer to the middle so we can get back on track and being who we are as America. Well, listen, the first segment ran a little long. We're going to go to break. When we come back, I'm going to talk more about how do we get back to the center. This is Jon Adams with Talk of the Town. If you want to call in, the phone number is 701-293-9000. Hey, welcome back to Talking to Tom with Jon Adams. I'm here on a rainy day, as you can see out behind us. Um, you know, a couple of weeks ago, one of my farmer friends said, it's going to be a hot, dry summer, and so far it seems like we've had cold and rainy at least 2-3 days a week, and then we've had scorching heat. So I don't know how much the farmer's almanac has been on this year, but I'll tell you, I'm ready for some dry, hot weather for at least a good week or two. Now, I'd be okay if it rained at night, but this raining during the day, I got stuff to do. I got stuff to get done. But anyway, when I left off on the break, I was talking about what's going to move us more towards center and not so much left and right. And I think at the top of the thing is one of the reasons that we've lost our way is that good people are refusing to speak up. I'm saying that people, I got a lot of people that I know in my community that behind the scenes they have an awful lot to say and are disenchanted about the state of our country right now. But you know what? I never see those people voice that opinion other than, you know, in their circles. Okay? And I think this is part of our problem. Since when did it become fashionable not to tell the truth out loud? Because we certainly are hearing an awful lot of lies, particularly coming out of Washington on both sides of the aisle. But when did it become fashionable and okay to be okay with people lying directly to your face? And then trying to convince you to be okay with it. And I'll give you an example. You know, for 4 years I listened ad nauseum about the Biden administration, how inept they were, and all the corruption and all this different stuff, and people had a lot to say about it. But there were some good things about the Biden administration where people remained silent about it or they weren't very vocal about it. Okay? And so now we have regime change and we have elections and we have a new administration in, right? I don't see the same vitriol. Okay? Also, I don't see a whole lot of people telling the truth that isn't slanted one way or the other. So to me, it's like, all right, we know, okay? We're all intelligent human beings here. We know what the reality is of the situation. You know, you look at economically. Are we really better off right now than we were a year ago? Has life gotten better to a point where you're okay with where we are? Or do you think back a year ago and go, you know, I miss this, this, and this? And I'm not going to answer the question, but it's a question that should be asked. 6 months in, are we better off? Now, depending on who you ask, people say, "Oh, things are going marvelously." And listen, I'm gonna give these guys credit, and in some areas I would agree with that. But I said as a whole, do you have peace of mind when you think about the future right now? In your pocketbook, are you saving more or are you spending more? Now, I can't answer it for you because it depends on what you're buying. It depends on where you are in your life. For me, I haven't really I haven't noticed a drop off or a pickup one way or the other. Okay? Life just seems to be going on, but I'm in a different point in life than most people that I know. So I would like to say I'm unaffected, although I could tell you meat prices have me in a tizzy because, as you guys know, I like to barbecue, and I know there's been an increase in the price of meat. You know, I know that groceries cost more, significantly more. I mean, one item is I'm a fan of the White Castle burger, and the what used to be $6.99 now is $8.49, and I can't figure it out because it ain't like the burgers got any better. It ain't like they added anything, but they they went up $2.50. For a box of 6. Some people might say, yeah, that's you must have money to be able to afford White Castle burgers like that. Well, no, it just depends on where you put your money. But the question is, are we better off? And then the other question you have to ask yourself, if the question is no, why? My contention is it's because the government is not doing their job. Okay? I don't think we're doing the people's business in Washington on either side of the aisle. There's a lot of saber rattling, and there's a lot of comments this back and forth. But just look at things. And people will give you all sorts of reasons as to why we can't lower prices, why prescription drugs cost what they do, I've been looking at the gas prices for years, and I still can't figure out, because every time they say, well, this is the reason that gas prices go up or down, it seems like the metric bounces around and it changes a lot. So number one, why don't you give us the facts of how things work, and then let us decide, and let us determine whether you're doing a good job. But I've had this wait and see approach to this administration. With the bombing in Iran, I said on this show, I'm just going to say, I'm done. I've seen enough. To me, this act is pretty much the last straw for me, not just for this administration, but for what I see coming out of Washington. Listen, I'm going to hit this when we come back after the break. This is Jon Adams with Talk of the Town. We'll see you on the other end of the break, and we're going to talk about, are you now fed up with where we are and our government? If you want to call in, the phone number is 701-293-9000. Hey, welcome back to Talk of the Town with Jon Adams. I posed a question last segment. Do you think we're better off now than we were last year? And before I take a call, I want to say this, okay? Better off can be subjective. Like I said, for me, I feel like it's about the same. I feel like I'm paying more for meat, less for gas, that type of thing. But either way, I have a caller on the line. Andy, are you there?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. How are you today?
I am good. Thank you, John. First of all, I want to start out by saying I've listened to you since you started. You've got a great program, and you've given me many things to think about.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, to answer your question, I want to start out by saying I'm in agreement with you partially. My personal situation has changed, but got nothing to do with the Trump administration. I did vote for President Trump. I felt he was the better candidate. But I'll tell you how to answer your question. I would say while my personal situation hasn't changed in regards to, like grocery store prices and that sort of thing, those things usually aren't going to go down. However, What's changed, what has changed is my optimism for the future of the country.
And optimism for the future of the country?
Absolutely. I feel much better with President Trump as president. I feel we have more of a sense of direction. I feel that we were kind of a ship without a direction the last 4 years. I'm more optimistic for the state of our country, for the role of our country in the world. And, when citizens are optimistic, they tend to think more and better about their current situation, and which is going to lead to people to try new things. Maybe they're a little more riskier because they're optimistic about the future. When President Trump got reelected, I'm in a business where I deal with a lot of customers, and I've been in this profession for almost 34 years now, and I can tell you, I've never heard that word optimistic more than I did when he got reelected.
So I hear you saying that you believe that that we're heading in the right direction. So give me some. Sorry.
I think. Oh, I'm sorry. I think we're heading in a better direction. There seems to be a vision that we didn't have in the last 4 years. It's kind of like we were aiming for nowhere. And it seems like now, under President Trump, we are heading in a different direction, and hopefully a better direction. I think the jury will, be out on the state of things under his vision. It's too early to say, but at least we're heading in a different direction, and I think it's going to be a better direction.
When you say direction, what are some examples? What are the examples that give you hope that we're running in the right direction? And what does that future look like?
Well, to me, we're shaping up as a country. And when we take a look at the issues, John, that were before us in the election, for example, the border. Mm-hmm. The border was a disaster. It was a train wreck. They needed to clean that up. We need a better stance on global affairs. I'm all for America first, and I think Trump's slogan, "Make America Great Again," some people don't like that. They say, "Oh, it's trampling on others." I don't see it that way. I don't think there's anything wrong with the citizens of this country wanting our country to be safe, wanting our country to get ahead economically, wanting our country to be able to not live in fear every day that, some other country is going to take us over. And I think under the previous administration, a lot of people felt, we are in serious trouble and we're going to be taken over if things don't change.
Okay. So, and those are all great points, Andy. At the top of the thing that I think, and I think I agree with you. Okay. Mm-hmm. Here's my only issue. And I've said this before. It's implementation. Okay, we've always been a nation that on the global stage, we've always practiced diplomacy. Okay,
correct. Yep.
I don't see a whole lot of diplomacy coming out of this administration. I don't see, in our country as Trump fans or non-Trump fans, the number one thing that we have is we do have dialogue, and we may not disagree, but the dialogue is there. So how can we have dialogue in our country, but on the global stage, we don't have dialogue, we have a big stick. Secondly,
Well,
go ahead.
okay.
Now we've
Well,
got
to answer
before you get started, we've got about a minute and a half. So first, I want to say thank you. Very well said, and I do agree with you. I think we're headed in the right direction. Like I said before, I think it's the implementation and the way we go about it. So go ahead, Andy.
Well, to answer your question, John, I'm all for diplomacy as much as you are. But let me ask you this question in return. When you look at the way we have conducted diplomacy in the past, has it worked to our benefit as a country, or has it hindered us?
I think that's a broad question. I think that it is basically
Are there
not
times when we should use and carry a big stick?
absolutely there are. I don't disagree with you, but at the same time, I think that there's a way to go about it, and the diplomacy has helped us. Okay, I think that we were thought of better as a nation. People were more willing to deal with us. Listen, we got to rock and roll. Andy, thank you for the call. Call in next week so we can continue this
Thank you, John.
discussion.
Keep up the good work.
Yes, have a
Thank
great
you.
day. You guys, thanks for tuning in. This has been Jon Adams for Talk of the Town. And as always, stay black.
And thanks for being with us here at midday on this Wednesday. I'm Ken Duffy. Ahead this hour, the latest on last week's storm recoveries. North Dakota's governor heads out to survey the damage. We had word that a fourth person died because of the storms. We'll tell you where. More volunteers are needed to help with cleanup in northern Cass County, although one place now says they are good. We'll have more on last night's motorcycle crash that shut down a South Fargo intersection. And the mayor of Fargo chimes in about calls to switch to a primary system to elect city leaders. All that is up ahead, but first let's see what's happening quickly on Wall Street. Stocks are mixed. Dow Jones down 133 points. NASDAQ up 51. S&P 500 relatively unchanged. Chief Meteorologist Dean Wysocki is working on your forecast. Dean.
Yeah, we've got a rainy afternoon out there. Hopefully you don't have a tea time because it's going to be tough getting it in. Nothing heavy, most of this light rain, but this will continue on and off through the rest of the afternoon with chilly temps stuck in the 60s. What about the rest of the week and a peek into the weekend, because there could be severe storms as we head into the weekend. I'll detail that more in depth coming up here shortly.
All right, Dean, thanks. Coming up after the break as well, your local headlines, Sports Plus. Again, we will share the latest on where we stand with last week's storm cleanup and recovery in parts of North Dakota. Coming up on 12:02.